So on this video, I'm going to do season 14, episode 8 and 9, and some other gossip along the way. Wow, I have to start this recap of episode 8 and 9 with this post from Jenna Lyons. Seems like she might be contemplating quitting the show. I don't think she's happy with the way that maybe the fans are reacting to her or the edit. I'm not sure. It is so hard to be on the show. I totally understand. And she's got, 500,000 followers and she's loaded. So it's kind of like, why, right? She had her own show on HBO Max, but Jenna's my favorite. So I really hope she doesn't go because then I won't be covering this anymore. But I thought I'd alert you guys to this post. But Jenna wasn't the only unhappy person. Brynn Whitfield was upset because a lot of the people were calling her, I guess, a sugar baby and saying that she didn't make any money and all of her money comes from men or something. So she did a Brynn post. Wrote, the other gals' bios are so heavy on both their professional past and future ambitions. I'm proud of my career history, so sort of feel like I'm doing myself a disservice by omitting my career entirely and or diluting it to one professional title. Brynn Whitfield has a wealth of experience working on award-winning campaigns for global brands, managing and executing strategic media relation programs for clients including Shell Oil, Unilever, Johnson & Johnson, and $1.7 billion e-commerce scale-up and tech unicorn Assembly. Whitfield's career highlights include working on the BP Deepwater Horizon Gulf oil spill, playing a pivotal role on the PR team responsible for the massively award-winning Dove Beauty Sketches campaign, which was the recipient of the Cannes Gold Lion Award for Best Integrated Campaign led by PR. Whitfield also led the Z-Cam PR team, securing a Telly Award for Best Branded Content, as well as a Sabre Award on the on-set career for Campaign of the Year at the National Association of Broadcasters. A Midwest native, Brynn graduated from Purdue University with a Bachelor's of Arts degree in Rhetoric Advocacy. And she had a minor in political science. In her spare time, Brynn enjoys being a young patron of the New York Metropolitan Opera and a member of the Marshall Chess Club. She has volunteered with nonprofit organizations, including the Bowery Mission, School on Wheels, One-on-One, and Border Angels. So she has a very impressive resume, and she said that she tried to get the producers to cover some of her job or her doing her work, and they never would, and she kept saying it over and over to them, and they just didn't want to shoot it or edit it in, I guess. So then Brynn wrote this influencer saying, you're reposting things about me being an escort and a sugar baby, and it's disgusting. You should be ashamed. My CV is 5 pages long, and my career is more decorated than most. There were countless days I was working so much I couldn't even film most of the time. I can't help it if editors choose not to include that. When you're at the point I am in my career, you get to do this amazing thing called consulting, which is what I do now for 2 skincare brands. You're super gross, and now you're blocked. And then she said, anyone else want to get blocked today? I don't use social media to show me sitting on Zoom calls and making 50-page long business decks. Don't confuse yourself. Brynn wrote, and while we're at it, I've never claimed to be rich. Quite the opposite. On the red carpet at the premiere, there's a video of a reporter asking me which Sex and the City character I am. I said, I'm as flirty and funny as Samantha, and the broke, witty one of the group like Carrie. In my Cosmo interview, I shared how during my Real Housewives of New York auditions, I kept saying, I'm neither married nor rich, and I don't own a house. I think you're talking to the wrong New Yorker. I've worked super hard and have made a modest life for myself. It's not rocket science, you guys. Work in corporate America, no kids, no husband, money for yourself. I hope and pray for the day when I have all the expenses that come with kids, husbands, houses, and dogs. But that day hasn't come yet. So in the interim, I'm going to enjoy this bit of security and freedom while I still have it. So it seems some of the Real Housewives of New York reboot characters are struggling with their newfound fame and Bravo-celebrity status. It is very difficult to be criticized all the time and trolled, etc. So I'm sure they don't have the skin for it yet, but they will. It'll come. It does for everyone. So we start this episode 8 off, and Brynn is getting in a fight with Aaron regarding her flirtatious comments to her husband, which were in bad taste because her husband was at his anniversary party celebrating his marriage with a vow renewal to his wife, and Brynn thought it would be a great time to hit on him in a flirtatious manner, which she said she was just kidding, and he was laughing, and Jessel was just laughing, and so no one should take offense. Aaron, however, did take offense. Wrong time, wrong place. So we leave it there. Psy ends up going to look for resort wear on their way getting ready for Psy's trip to Anguilla, which is a British overseas Caribbean territory. She's taking the women on a vacation there. Never been to Anguilla. Sure, it's great. I oddly have never been there. So Uba's excited. They try on a bunch of really high fashion clothing, and that's it. And Uba scolds Psy for leaving the anniversary early because she says that was rude. And the women are upset because Jenna keeps giving them amazing presents, but her name's on them in some way. And so they feel like, they have to bitch about something because it is for TV. So they're like, damn it. Why can't you just give us a present that doesn't have your name on it? But then also, they were also like later in episode 9, we'd love the present, but don't use presents to not let us know who you are. I'm just like, you can't win with these people. You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. So Jenna Lyons' mom was very unique in that she had Asperger's. And one of the byproducts of that is that loud noises are not filtered in the same way that most people hear noise. And they are very distracting and almost agonizing for someone with Asperger's. So silence was really important in her house, and her mom didn't show emotions in the same way that Jenna expected her to, mainly because of the Asperger's. And so we learned this about Jenna and that this was tough on her as a child. We also find out that Jenna has another name, it's Judith, and that she took her nickname from her brother making fun of her, calling her Jenna Genitalia. Anyway, somehow that inspired her name. And she also has a genetic disorder in continentia pigmenti, which causes her to lose her eyelashes, which is why she has an eyelash company and she makes fake eyelashes for women. She's also having to have several surgeries on her mouth to make her teeth look TV ready, and also not be so painful and cause so many medical issues for her. Tough, it's a lot. And then she has a skin pigmentation issue and she loses hair in certain parts of her body. And so she's constantly in a state of feeling insecure about herself. And then you add to it that she's going on a very judgy reality TV show, and it's pretty easy to understand why she doesn't want to open up and also doesn't want to wear skimpy outfits or show off her body, especially since most of her castmates are like models. Here's a picture with Jenna Lyons and her mother, who's now passed away. To be fair, most of the Real Housewives and friends of that have had normal bodies and weren't extraordinary in their bodies. We're all feeling like Jenna Lyons on this show, whatever their franchise was. And that's why everyone glows up, and that's why everyone gets super thin. And even then, some women don't feel comfortable, like Kyle. Kyle spent years trying to get thinner, was never happy, didn't feel comfortable on camera, like in bathing suits and stuff like that. And she had to work so hard at it. I mean, look at where she's at now. She had a boob reduction. She works out like 2 hours every day. She's super skinny. Now finally she's starting to feel confident, but look what it took. And I wonder if she'll even show it on the show, if we'll see it this season. It's tough. It's tough. It's a very real thing to feel insecure on Housewives. So I feel for Jenna. And I felt bad that she cried at dinner in episode 9. Well, I have to be honest. I would have been pissed at Brynn too if she had flirted with my husband at my anniversary party. Wouldn't have rubbed me right. I would have been more like Uba. I would have been messing with that a little bit because I wouldn't appreciate that. And I don't think it's funny, honestly. But some people do. So in episode 8, Jenna's with her brother and she's showing him, some of her work she's been doing at Rockefeller Center that she's really proud of. And of course, she starts talking about having to wear a bathing suit in Anguilla and feeling nervous about it. And her brother seems to be very supportive. Then Brynn's back in LA and she meets her brother during the holiday Darius. And he's a teacher in South Korea, which is really funny because so is my cousin. And she absolutely loves it. So it's at this time that we find out that Brynn is having baby fever. She's just turned 36 and she's feeling like the clock is ticking, and she's not wrong, because if you don't freeze your eggs by like 40, you could run into problems. And so she feels like maybe she needs to really get on it now and get married, stop messing around, and find a guy. But what isn't really adding up is that she's had so many offers from men. She was engaged 3 times and she didn't want to marry any of them. So, and they seem really nice. So I don't really understand what's wrong with Brynn. Well, Brynn really feels like she's got a broken chip because her parents abandoned her and were drug addicts and did all these awful things to her as a child, and that she just cannot connect properly with a man as a result of it, and she associates family with really negative things. And this is what Brynn believes is her problem. Then we see Jessel, and she's now talking with her husband, and he says to her, I want to go to Vietnam while you go to Anguilla. And she's like, I'm going to Anguilla for like a week. You go to Vietnam for a long period of time. And he's like, no, I want to go for 3 days. But like, he just wanted to go. He had no reason to go. It was just the weirdest conversation. It just made no sense to me whatsoever. I'm not even sure. Like, she was like, why do you have to go to Vietnam? And he didn't have it was so strange. I'm so confused. Now I'm Erin. I'm so confused. Now, in case you're wondering what was the sandwich that Jessel's husband was obsessed with, this is it. It's basically a Vietnamese sub. Okay, I just want to say, if you didn't think that this couple's storyline was bullshit, you have to think it now. Okay. So Jenna does not want to fly in to coach. She only wants to fly in first class, and she admits this to Erin. But she also explains that she wants to go a few days early, or maybe 1 day early, to get a tan so that her skin looks more even when the women get there, because she's so self-conscious. Well, Erin decides to be a SHIT starter and use this against her friend Jenna with the other women by calling it out first thing when she gets there that the reason that Jenna wasn't with them on the coach flight was that she flew business class and arrived a day before. And it wasn't just because of the tan. It was because of the flight. So the women end up in Anguilla and they all get their bedrooms. One of the notable things is that Jessel and Uba share a room. And the place is stunning. I looked up the place. Actually, I'll tell you about that in a minute. But Jenna gets thrown under the bus by Erin because the women want to make a fight now over her taking business over coach. And because she just doesn't tell them to F off, they keep coming for Jenna. And so Jen is listening to it. And, it gets really annoying for me as the watcher just because all of them are not on her side. And I kind of wanted to see someone go like, stick up for Jenna, I guess. But maybe the producers didn't want it. There's always that. So eventually Jenna gets a room in Psy's rental. And so Jenna feels punished because she's the last one at that house and she gets a crappy room. And we move on. So in case you're like me and after watching the show so far, you truly want to go to Anguilla and you want to stay at the place they stayed at, it was called Long Bay Villas. And when you go to VRBO, you can find a bunch of them, I guess, in this community, and all the places are really gorgeous and actually not too much money. This house that you're looking at in this picture is only $800 a night. So Psy's interested in food, only food, and food again. Psy loves food. But I'm thinking it's not as catchy as the producers think. They keep really trying to make that a thing, and I don't know, it's not really grabbing me. They could have done better, something else maybe. So Uba talks about Africa as if no American person knows what Africa is, and she brings up an ad, the children in Ethiopia, and somehow guess she thinks Americans think that that's what Africa's like. Now, certainly there are parts of Africa that are tourist destinations for safari or South Africa. South Africa is gorgeous. There's parts of it that are like Beverly Hills on the water. Clifton, for example. I lived in South Africa for 4 months, and it's a stunning place. I wanted to live there forever. That's how great it is. But there's a lot of issues in Africa, and you really have to take it on a kind of country by country basis. So I thought that was like, maybe she became a little American with that comment. I felt like Uba's comment was a little out of touch, because in Africa, yes, there's many beautiful places, but we've been struggling with, drought and definitely food shortages in parts of Africa, like Ethiopia, which is right next to where she's from. And, so many children died, especially in the 80s. This is why this became, starvation and helping children in Africa became such a theme. Remember Band-Aid, Do They Know It's Christmas Time at All? Well, like, for example, here, I grabbed it. 1980s, Ethiopia famine was one of the worst humanitarian events of the 20th century, galvanizing the world's attention to end widespread starvation and save lives. Ethiopia's food shortages and hunger crisis from 1983 to 1985 led to an estimated 1 million famine deaths. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So, they promoted this a lot to try to get people to support it. I felt that it was a little tone deaf of Uba on that note, just saying. If you haven't heard, by the way, Morocco had a major earthquake and over 2,000 people have been killed in it. It's a huge tragedy. And what's really so crazy was I was just in Morocco in the summer. So I was really shocked. It's just so sad. But the biggest surprise tonight is we finally see through this tough exterior of Psy, who doesn't really want to seem to share too much about herself so far on the show. But in episode 9, she cracks wide open and we finally see some vulnerability to her. And that is that when she was 16, her mom started to drink in the mornings and drink more and more, and she developed the disease of alcoholism. And so much so, her health deteriorated and she wasn't the same person. And she was also, I guess, an angry drunk or a detached drunk, an abusive drunk, like most people when they abuse alcohol too much. And Psy was always damage controlling for her mother for years. And sadly, we find out that her mother never beats alcoholism and in fact dies of a heart attack in a park. She's, I guess, taken to the hospital after she has this heart attack and is found in this park. And Psy meets her there and they know that she's not going to come back. But just in case she's still present, Psy plays Latina music and the salsa and calls all the relatives on the phone and tells them to tell a happy story about something they remembered with their mother. Her mom always liked her eyebrows done a certain way, and Psy did it for her as she was passing. Very emotional scene. Shocking to me how much crying happened on episode 9, not because of fighting, but because of real internal struggle, which they don't normally give us on Housewives, and I'm really enjoying this. So it becomes clear in episode 8 and 9 that Aaron and Uba have talked before this group trip. And I think Aaron said to Uba, you've got to bring it because she's had COVID and she hasn't really been doing anything so far. And I think Aaron was worried that Uba wasn't going to make the cut. So Uba and Aaron come in hot on this trip. And I think Aaron is kind of the ringleader. And Uba and Aaron are making a lot of eye contact at one of the dinners in particular where they're trying to come for Brynn for saying that she wanted to wife swap with Babe or whatever she calls Aaron's husband. So it becomes clear that Aaron and Uba are definitely in cahoots. So I'm going to say that Uba's casting vulnerability at this time is showing, and she's going to continuously, out of the blue, start causing problems and being outrageous and all this stuff because she's nervous. She doesn't know if she's got the gig yet. She's feeling insecure, so she's going to start bringing it big time. Now, they go to a bunch of dinners. They go to the beach. And I just want to say something. Erin hasn't really opened up yet either. She's been keeping her storyline around her husband and kids. She hasn't really gone deep either. But the women are so distracted by Erin always bringing the drama that they don't go there with her. And that is a tactic. And Erin has recognized it, and she's using it to her advantage. So there is one other big fight that happens, which is Erin thinks that Brynn is lying when she says that she's freezing her eggs because she tells this elaborate story about how they were asking her who was involved with the embryos, use the embryos for or something. So she was like going through her phone trying to find a candidate, something to that effect. And Erin's like, they don't do that. That's not real. And she really makes an issue out of it. And Brynn, I think, honestly, this is the true, just because I've been through this, is exhausted. Been drunk for days. Like, can't do this anymore. She's emotionally so raw. She starts to get really upset over this and like almost cries. I'm sure she did go cry. She's a wreck. But this is what the producers do. They keep everybody awake. They keep you constantly shooting, constantly going, constantly thinking, drinking, acting like idiots. You're drinking from morning till night and you're exhausted and you can't ever get any me time. It's like, no. And by day 3, you're like, you just are crying over like literally spilled orange juice. You're hung over, Now, this is not going to happen to Uba and Jenna because they don't drink. But the other women, they're going to get more and more messy. But the producers have done a good job with getting us to care about these characters and find out what's unique about them very quickly in an interesting way. The fights have been a little meh, but we've got something moving the story forward. And this location in particular was just stunning to see and watch. And I'm really enjoying this franchise. I hope that it continues to be as good as it has been so far. All right, you guys. Well, like, subscribe, and hit that notification button. And we'll see each other soon, hopefully.